how to get your child talking. So how do you get your child talking? What can you do to get your child to talk? So this morning we're just going to look at some simple tips, some simple strategies that you can use to get your child talking. And remember, all these things that I talk about, there's some evidence of it where? In my book. So my book, The Good Parent and the Happy Child, is all about getting your child to develop all the skill sets, yes, that they need to ensure that they are ready and they're fully equipped to go into adulthood, because that's where, we want them to be rounded adults when they get to that place. So we want them to have their self-care skill, their independent skill, their critical thinking skills all developed to at the highest level, so that they can be the person who God wants them to be. And so we look back, as David said, and said, had it not been for the Lord on my side, where would I be? And so this morning we can reflect and we can look at ourselves and say, if certain things were in place, my parents had put certain things in place, maybe I would have been a different person. And yes, that is possible as well. But this morning we are going to look at how we can get our children, ways in which, good morning, thank you for joining, ways to get your child to talk or to speak. And so some of the things that we're going to be looking at is, remember, we have children who are fussy eaters. So maybe it's about what you eat that will, maybe you will eat something that they like to eat and eat it in their presence, but without offering them any. So yes, it looks harsh and you're eating something that they really like, but you want them to talk, you want them to ask, please, may I have? So these are things to do. So you can play with something that they like to play with, because you're trying to engage your child. So you have to engage your child to get your child to speak to you. So first you have to learn, how do you engage your child? Pardon me. So how do I get my 2-year-old, my 3-year-old, my 4-year-old, even my teenage? Because that's the biggest difficulty we have now, is getting our teenage to engage in conversation with us. They get to a certain age and of course, they know everything at this age. Good morning, thank you. And so it's never now about, Mom, I know, I know, and they know everything. And you just have to wonder, when did you get to that place where you know everything? Because, learning is a progress, and so we get to that place. So one of the first things I'm going to say to you, limit your child time to TV time. Use that time for you to go out with them, to talk to them, to play with them, to have fun with them, to play phones. If they want be on the devices, make telephone call, play phone calls, role play, do role play with your child. This will help them. Use turn-taking games such as rolling the ball to and fro, throwing the ball, throw it to them and let them throw it back, because learning to catch is something they have to do, like to roll it and then roll into. You can sit on the floor. If there's more than 2 of you, like 3, 4, you can sit on the floor and you roll it to one person, then they have to roll it to the other. And we do turn-taking games with them. You can also do what's the time, Mr. Wolf. There's another nice game that children like to play. And so they're learning matching this time, they're learning turn taking, they're using their gross motor skills, because if I remember correctly, that game is they have to walk. So one person turn their back to the rest of the children, and they play this game. Yes, so these are little things. And I talk about blowing bubbles. Blowing bubbles is a great way that, so hand it to your child, learning to do all these things, help them. Mealtime. Snack time, give your child bite-sized portions rather than dish up a whole something. Wait for them to request more. So remember, children portion is also different. So all these things come together. None of what I'm saying to you is in isolation. Everything works together as one to ensure. So ways you can do this is limit your child access to TV. Even to a lot of food, because if you're giving them a lot of snack, then when main meal time, they won't eat, because they snack so much, they're full up with snacks. So limit snacks, limit the amount of snacks that you give them. Yeah, going outside and play is good. Let them, when they play outside, they've used up the energy. So when they come back in, they will need to eat again. Not only will they eat, they will also sleep better when sleep time comes. Sometimes, some children, depends on the child and the age group, toys that they have to wind up. Sometimes if it's a toy that you have to wind up and they can't wind up, they may have to come to you and communicate and ask for your help and support. So these are just simple tips that I'm going to start with this morning of how to get your child to be at that place. Good morning, ma'am, and welcome. Thank you. So we're talking about ways to get children to talk. And so those are tips for smaller children. I've just talked about where they need to speak. But how do you get your teenage to talk to you? That's a difficult one, because many parents will tell you that their child, even when they start, by the time they start secondary school, maybe year 7, year 8, the communication just drops. It's suddenly, you can't get 2 words out of them. You really have to fight to get them to talk to you, to say anything to you. Yes. So how do you get your teenage son or daughter to communicate with you, to continue that line of communication so that they don't shut down? And this is very important for teenage and parents with teenage, because guess what? When they start shutting down, that's where the difficulty comes. The barriers go up. And when the barriers go up, it's very difficult for them to come down. So before they get up, or before they get too high, you have to start breaking down that barrier of communication that they're putting up. And most of this is happening because they have their phones. They're on their phones. They're talking to their phones. They're not talking to you no more. They don't want to talk to you. They have their friends on phone, and they're constantly doing this. You're talking to them and they're doing this. You're talking to them and they're not listening to you because they're on their phones. And so you want to have a one-to-one with them, and they forgot how to speak. They forgot how to communicate. Because when they're doing this on the phone, they're not really speaking language. Even the phone language, the text language is totally different from a speaking language. So therefore, guess what? When they have to go into exam and write a correct sentence, they forget how to do that. Because if you don't careful, they will go in there and write text language in exams. And what will happen? They fail their exam. So you got to keep up. You have to keep the lines of communication open. So you have to get away the barriers them. So when you have, so with your teenagers, so most of what I've said before, I've spoken about the younger ones, them like probably who have got speech delay, are just learning to talk and doing those activities. But I'm going to focus this morning on the teenagers, because this is where there's a great big barrier, because we think they need to have every toy going. They must have the latest gadget. So guess what? Because Tom Jones have got the latest phone, your child wants it, and you give it to your child and you buy it, and then later on you're regretting it, because guess what? You've lost your child by giving them that phone that they so badly need, and which they didn't really need, but they need. So you've lost your child in doing this, because your child no longer speaks to you. They're on their phone. They got their headphones in and they can't hear you. They're not talking to you, because you know what? When this is in and they're listening to their music or that, they're not hearing you. So the communication is, so the distraction, remember we talk about distraction. Distraction goes for adults as well. You as an adult, you have also got to put your phones away. You have to put away, set time. You got to be strategic in doing this. Set time for family time. Many of us don't eat at dinner table anymore. Okay, so if you're sitting in your living room and you don't have a dinner table, and you have to sit on settees, you might not have a dining table. Not everybody's blessed to have one. You have to sit with your food in your lap, and you have a tray. Then let everybody sit down all at the same time to eat. You can still talk to each other. Yeah? And so you do that. So at this time is a time when all phones are put away. This is a good time to find out from them what happened at school. How is school? How's your exam? When is your exam? When you start an exam, how's the study going? Have you been to the library? What's happening at the library? Talk to your child. And most of the time they will say, Mom or Dad, yes, it's okay, it's fine. Push. You got push in more. Ask more questions, ask deeper questions, ask questions that are open-ending questions that they have to explain. Just don't even think about asking the question, how was school today? Because guess what? You're going to get a one word response, fine. Or if it's not fine, it's going to be, okay, it was okay. Does that give you any idea what their school day was like? Not really. So let us learn to push deeper in. Let us learn to go deeper to really find out what is the heart of what's happening for our children. So you have to help them to build their sentences, help them to build up this communication thing. They don't really want to talk to us as parents no more. Because number one, as far as they're concerned, we don't understand them. We don't understand their world. We don't understand their knowledge, because we are parents. We just become parents. We were never children. We were never teenagers. We just go from being a baby to a parent. We didn't go through that process, or our days were different. Our things that we do then, we don't understand today's world. That's their thinking. So how do you get your teenage child to talk to you? How do you get your teenagers or talking to your teenagers? Choose the right time and place. You got to choose right time and place. Are you about tired after a busy day? Resist the urge to tackle a burning issue. If you're too tired, don't do it when you're tired, or if something that you really need to talk to them about. I don't think that time. Be specific. Have clear boundaries about your expectation of your child. So that's why you in the house we need boundaries and routines. So there's an expectation of your teenage child before you decide on what you're going to talk about. Set some guidelines and some rules. So maybe you need to lower your defense. Maybe if you're angry or upset, or the teacher called you and said this has happened at school. In the midst of your emotions, it's not the best time to talk to your child. Trust me, I've been there. You're gonna be having a shouting match, and nothing is gonna be established, or at that time you're not gonna accomplish anything. You're really not gonna, because you're gonna be shouting, they're gonna shut down, or they're gonna be shouting, you're gonna shut down, or both of you gonna be shouting, and nothing is accomplished. So the best way is wait until your emotions are a bit, bring it down, bring it down, bring it down, bring it down. Then then you talk to